Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. Today, we're going to be talking about exporting and importing grades into your student information system. This is a brief webinar that's part of CompuScholar's Teacher Success Series, and I'm glad you joined us. We'll start with some very brief introductions. My name is Chris Youst. I'm the president of the company. I've spent many years as a software engineer, so I've written quite a bit of code, and I'm very familiar with the software industry. Had the opportunity to interview many candidates as well as part of my role as in a consulting firm owner, and so I bring that perspective to the curriculum. And if you have any questions that you think I could possibly answer, I do encourage you to reach out to me. My email address is here at the bottom, and I look forward to speaking with you. So before we get going today, I wanted to share a few logistical details. So all of the participants on the call are muted to avoid background noise. So if you have questions, please just drop those questions in the chat window. I'll keep an eye on that and answer them right away. We are recording the session, so I'll be on my best behavior, and I hope everybody else is too. And we'll post the recording online after we're done. If for some strange reason we have some technical difficulties, we will continue the recording here offline and post the entire session that way. So again, I do encourage questions throughout. Don't be bashful about dropping those into the chat window as we get going. So as I mentioned, this is part of our Teacher Success Program. We do want to partner with you throughout the year and provide additional professional development and enrichment opportunities. So if there is another topic that you would like to see, please do send that to us. We love to get feedback from teachers. We love to hear suggestions about things that we can do for you. So again, just reach out to me by email or fill out a contact form from our website. And we're glad to schedule in some additional sessions based on things that you would like to talk about. So what are we going to cover today? As I mentioned, we are going to be talking about exporting and importing grades into student information systems. So a student information system is something like a Skyward or GradeSpeed or RenWeb, where parents and students are used to going to see their grades. So big picture, you've got grades stored in CompuScholar's learning management system, and we're going to talk about effective ways to move those grades out of CompuScholar and into your student information system. So the main topics we'll hit today is we'll be talking about CSV files, what those are, how to generate them. We'll give you a walkthrough of the export process for CompuScholar's Gradebook. And we'll talk about adding student ID numbers to profiles in order to facilitate the import process. And then we'll touch briefly on importing to your student information system. And then as we always do in these webinars, we'll wrap up with a brief CompuScholar forum where we'll look ahead to some things that are happening next month. And if you have any general purpose CompuScholar questions, you can always ask those then. All right, so CSV is comma separated value. So this is a kind of a generic file format. And most of these student information systems that we've dealt with can import CSV files. So the trick is getting those CSV files formatted correctly. And the format does depend on the student information system. I can show you an example for the Skyward SIS that we've used in the past. Let me flip over and do that. So I'm just going to double click on this example CSV file, and that will bring it up in Excel that's here installed on my machine. And I'll spread out the columns a little bit so you can see them. I'll go ahead and blow this up a little bit too, just to make sure it's clear on the recording. So you can see we've got 4 columns in the CSV file: first name, last name, ID number, and score. And these columns happen to be defined by Skyward. So Skyward is the one that is mandating the format of this CSV file for import. And so we've got a few fake student names here along with ID numbers and scores. And so these are the scores that we want to import into, in this case, a Skyward system. So the trick is going to be, how do we get a CSV file that's formatted like this from CompuScholar system? So let me go ahead and close this. Right, and we have a question coming in: is a CSV a regular text file, or how do you edit the CSV? So yes, a CSV is a plain text file. So if you double click on it, it will normally open in whatever spreadsheet program you have installed on your computer. If you don't have any, you can always edit it in a normal text editor, Notepad, or anything else. I happen to have Ultra Edit installed on this computer. So you can see up here a CSV file is just comma separated values. Here's the column names across the top, and then the individual values right? And so your spreadsheet will show you these things in a somewhat nicer format. But at the end of the day, it's this CSV file that's being imported into a student information system. Let me close that. All right, so that's the basics of a CSV. So now let's switch over and start talking about CompuScholar's Gradebook. And you can export grades into a variety of formats, and you can do those singly or in groups or all together. So let's switch over to our learning management system and take a look. So this is our learning management system, and I've logged in as a demo teacher to a demo course. Let's go ahead and click on our Java programming demo course. And let's take a look at the gradebook. You can see I've got a couple of students here that are already enrolled and they've taken a couple of quizzes. So to export these quizzes, let's click on Export. And again, let me blow up my screen just a little bit, just to make sure it's clear on the recording. All right, so on the Export tab, you've got a few different options here. Most people are going to choose Excel spreadsheet, so we'll click on that first. And then you've got the option of checking each individual quiz, activity, or test. If you scroll way down, activities, and then exams as well. So if you're doing this at the end of the semester or the end of the year, you might want all of them. But if you're just doing on a week-by-week basis, just click this line here to clear out all the check marks. And then we can pick the one quiz or test that we want, or the small handful that we want to export. So I've checked the quiz that I want. I'm going to scroll all the way down. And if we look at the format options, there's nothing that you really need to change here. In most cases, you're going to want to export the real grades. I'll minimize that and click on Download. And it's going to download, in this case, the spreadsheet, because that's what I asked it for. And we'll save it to a particular directory here on my computer. Save. Now let's take a look and see what it's done for us. Okay, so this is Excel. Let me go ahead and blow this up a little bit again, trying to be mindful of the recording. So you can see there's quite a few columns in here. Just going to expand them out a little bit. So the student's first name, last name, and ID number. And this ID number is something that you can assign. I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. Institution, department, email address, and then the actual name of the quiz and the quiz values, and then another timestamp over here. So the odds are your student information system doesn't want all of these columns, and you are certainly free to delete the ones that you don't want. So if we wanted to, for example, format it for Skyward, we would delete these columns, institution, department, email address. We don't need those. We don't need this column. Let's delete that. And your student information system will probably have very careful specifications on what you do need to name your columns. In the case of Skyward, you need to name the grade column score. So we've named it score. Now, this is a spreadsheet, and if your student information system will import Excel spreadsheets directly, then you're pretty much done at this point once you've made any adjustments to the columns in terms of the names across the top and deleted columns that you don't want. However, if you need to if you need to import a CSV file instead into your SIS, we need to save this as a CSV. The file, save as, save it in the same location, and we'll choose CSV instead. Save. Okay, Excel's going to complain because I'm going to lose some formatting. That's fine. All right, so I saved this as a CSV, and if we flip over to my Explorer window here, hopefully we'll find it. Yep, there you go. We now have, very good. We now have a CSV file here as well. So I can close this out. And if we open this in a text editor, you can see it's a traditional CSV format, just like we demonstrated earlier. Let me close that. All right, where are we here? What do we want to talk about? So we just demonstrated exporting from CompuScholar's Gradebook. So again, I just demonstrated a single grade, but you can do multiple grades or the entire gradebook if you want to, and there'll just be some additional columns there in the list. Now, we mentioned briefly the concept of student ID numbers. So in your student information system, your student will almost certainly be represented by some sort of unique ID either a number or a string or something like that. And it is often required that that ID value be present in the CSV when you're going to import. So the ID number is the magic link that connects the row in the CSV file to the student record when you're importing those grades. So what we would like to do is avoid all sorts of manual intervention every time you export from CompuScholar. So you can actually add these student IDs to the student profiles yourself, and that way they will always be present on output, and you don't need to keep manually adding them back in right before you import into your SIS. So let me show you how to do that. All right. So I'm still logged in as a teacher. I'm going to go back to my main course, and I'm going to click Manage My Logins. So Manage My Logins, you'll see the students here in your list. Now, I will point out if you are on a Clever integration or a ClassLink iteration, this list will be empty because your student IDs are automatically managed. So if you have Clever or ClassLink and you are interested in making sure that your student IDs are set up correctly, please contact us and we can walk you through that process. It'll be slightly different. But for most of you that are not on Clever and ClassLink, you'll see your students listed here. So you pick your student, click on Manage User, and then you can come in here and you can type in or cut and paste the ID number for that particular student. So this is just a one-time exercise you can do at the beginning of the school year to put your student IDs in here for each student. You can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for this student, and pick up the next student, right? Bunch of 9s there for that ID number. So when you enter the ID, just hit save, and that will save it to the student profile. Now, once you've added those student IDs, then the magic happens, because when you export grades, again, we'll go back to the spreadsheet here. These grades are, the ID numbers are present in the gradebook. So if you had not entered those student ID numbers first, then the ID number field here would be blank. And when you tried to import this into your student information system, maybe it's going to try and match on first name or last name or something like that. But most likely, some sort of ID number here is going to be required for your SIS. So whatever that value is per student, you would stick it into the ID number field, and that would show up here on the exported spreadsheet. All right, let's see where we are here. Okay, so we talked about student ID numbers and assigning them. Oh, I'm sorry, there's a question here in the chat window. So there's a question about exporting groups of grades and averages. So we have seen in some cases where teachers want to actually import, say, all of the quizzes for a particular chapter and then average those quizzes together and import a single quiz grade into their student information system. So let me show you very briefly what you would do there. Let's go back to the learning management system. We'll go in here, view the gradebook. I'm going to export spreadsheet. And let's clear most of them here. And let's get a couple of different grade columns this time. All right, now we'll download. And save that file on top of the other one. Okay. Again, that makes blow this up a little bit. So now you can see we actually have two different quiz grades here, the two quiz grades that we selected. We'll get rid of the columns here that we don't want. I should mention before I delete the institution column, if you have a Clever or a ClassLink integration and you want to go through this process, what we'll do is make sure that the student ID value is here in this institution field instead. We'll be using the ID number for internal purposes in Clever and ClassLink, but we can get you populated into this institution field, and then you can use that instead of the ID number. So it's pretty straightforward. Just let us know if you fall into that category. All right, so let me delete these. Okay, so if you actually wanted to import an average of these things into your student information system, just use the power of the spreadsheet. You can type in a formula here or use the little buttons up here to create a formula. So There's probably a dozen different ways to do this in Excel. We'll just be very, very simple here. Equals D2 plus E2, and we want that whole quantity. Pardon me while I fight with Excel for a moment. And we want that whole quantity divided by the number. All right, so our average is 90, and then you can just drag that down to as many students as you need to, and now you've got a calculated grade, and you can name that score or whatever you want to. Now, if your student information system will tolerate there being other columns that it doesn't recognize in the CSV file, you can just leave it like this. You can save this and go ahead and copy it out to a CSV file, save as, same directory, and we're going to save this as a CSV. Okay. Now, if we don't need those, delete them from my CSV, and you'll notice that the score there, since it was a calculated value, is now giving me an error. So let me undo that and just show you a little trick. So these are formulas right now. I can copy them, and then I'm going to paste them, and I'm going to paste the values here. Right, so now this is an actual number, 90, instead of a formula, and you can delete all the stuff that you don't want without giving yourself an error reference here. Okay, so very briefly, that's how you would do it if you want to perform some additional post-processing on the data, whether you're doing an average or some other sort of thing. You really have the full power of your spreadsheet here to help you manipulate the grades. And the whole goal, of course, is you want to do as little manual intervention as possible. So speaking about that, we've got a question here about further automating the process. So are there things you can do on top of what I just described to make your life easier? Definitely there are. So if you find yourself doing the same sort of mechanical adjustments to the exported spreadsheet every time, whether it's deleting columns or renaming columns or performing calculations, there's probably a million ways that you could automate that. If you're an Excel whiz, I suspect you could do it with some Excel macros. My natural inclination would be to write a small script or a little Java program or something like that to do it. Our Java programming class actually talks about file I/O with a CSV file as an example. So if you have some Java programming students or something similar, you could challenge your students to write you a program that would help you import the grades into your student information system as cleanly as possible. So there's probably several different ways that you could add some additional automation to this. But the key from our perspective is just making sure you get the grades exported from your CompuScholar gradebook and that you have the right ID numbers here that will help you out when it comes time to import into the student information system. All right, so that's student IDs. And we actually can't show you importing to an SIS, unfortunately. Every SIS is different, and those tend to be fairly protected things in terms of not letting publishers in to actually look at live grades and that sort of thing. We have verified that the import process generally works on Skyward and on GradeSpeed. We would love to help you out. So if you have a different SIS and you're struggling with the import, we would love to help to the extent that we can. So please contact us and say, hey, we're trying to import into XYZ student information system, and we're just having some problems. So we can help you do some research and try and figure out what the file formats should look like. If you would like to create a sandbox account for us so we can actually get into your SIS and play with it and practice doing some imports on some test classes, we'd love to do that as well. We can even record a video for your teachers that show your teachers exactly how to do it once we figured it out for you. So please let us know how we can help with your particular SIS. We'd love to do that. Okay, so that was a quick whirlwind tour of exporting grades from CompuScholar and importing them into different types of student information systems. I hope you found that useful. Again, if you find yourselves doing really mechanical manual work day after day, week after week, of any sort, please do let us know, and hopefully there's a way that we can improve that process or automate that process for you. So we're at the CompuScholar forum section of the webinar. This is something we just do very briefly at the end of every month, just to kind of let you guys know if anything new and exciting is going on and kind of preview the topics ahead. So we are pleased to announce that the Unity game programming course has finally been released. We have production classrooms this year that are already going through it. So if you missed those announcements earlier and you'd like to take a look at that course, we're really excited about it. So please drop us a line. We'll be happy to give you a preview. And then looking ahead to next month's webinar, we're going to be talking about some integration topics. So it is possible to actually integrate CompuScholar's course material with systems like Canvas, Schoology, Blackboard, Desire to Learn, Brightspace, It's Learning. We've done all those things. And so if you don't want to use CompuScholar's LMS, and you'd like to use your own instead, we'll show you how that's done. We'll also talk about Clever and ClassLink, which are two new integrations that we've done this year. So Clever and ClassLink lets you use single sign-on features to get to CompuScholar's LMS. So instead of getting a CompuScholar username and password, you would use one that's assigned by your district. And that'll also handle automatic rostering. So instead of you having to mess with registration codes and that sort of thing, we would just pull all the information directly from your SIS and automatically create your classes and enroll your students in those classes. So there's a lot of good stuff there in the integration topics. So we'll be talking about all of those things coming up in the November webinar. So again, if you have any questions or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. So you're welcome to reach out to us by phone. You can fill out a contact information form through our website, or again, you're always welcome to email me directly. Love chatting with teachers, and we'll be very responsive to you. So thanks so much for your time today, and we'll look forward to doing this again next month. Bye-bye.